Welcome back, everyone, to Through the Leadership Lens, a podcast presented by the Women in Propane Council, where bold voices, big ideas, and brilliant guests take center stage. I am Freddie Ridler, and we're diving deep into the leadership that inspires, empowers, and it transforms. And now, joining me in the studio is my incredible host, the one and only Jessica Balderston.
Thank you, Freddie. Today we're joined by Kristi Wells, the CEO and co-founder of SafeHouse Project, a national leader in the fight against child trafficking in the United States. Under her leadership, the organization has not only raised national awareness around this critical issue, but also created a framework to equip communities, train frontline responders, and provide safe housing for survivors. Kristi isn't just leading a nonprofit, she's leading a movement. And her leadership style is a blend of courage, compassion, and conviction. In this conversation, we'll dive into what it means to lead in the face of crisis, how she builds a mission-driven team. Welcome, Kristi. We're so excited to have you on.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Kristi, do you mind just explaining to our listeners right now and kind of what the SafeHouse Project is and how you came to start it?
Yeah, absolutely. So SafeHouse Project is a national anti-trafficking organization. My co-founder and I launched it in 2017. Both of us came from varying areas in corporate America. And I'll tell you kind of what we saw to tell you how we got to where we are today. But both of us were working in corporate America. Our husbands were active duty military. Mine has since retired. But both of us had seen trafficking internationally and really had a heart for this issue. A friend of ours went to South Africa, saw a need to build up a safe house over there to protect girls at risk of trafficking. He came back with his heart on fire, and we jumped in to help raise money in South Africa. But as we began doing that, people started to say, "That's great, but what are you going to do here?" We didn't have an answer, and we weren't looking to have an answer. Both of our husbands deployed, leaving us with 5 children under the age of 7. But we decided to take time to really become students, to understand what were the needs, what were the gaps, and what in the world could we do about it. And what we saw at that time was that the Department of Justice had just issued a report stating an estimated 300,000 American kids were being trafficked, sold for sex here in America every single year. Victim identification of those kiddos was only at 1%. And without a safe place to go, once that 1% was identified, 80% would end up back in traffickers' hands. And we only had 100 beds in safe homes for minors across the U.S. So SafeHouse Project now operates in a few areas. One, we work to train people to identify and respond to trafficking. We want to make sure we're increasing those victim identification rates above 1%, which is why our partnership with Cetane and the propane industry is so critical. We help victims escape their trafficking situation. And so it's not really us being the heroes. It's about being there in the moments that they have 10 seconds of insane courage and helping them escape and really access high quality housing and healing. And we can do that well because we've spent the last 7 years helping to fund and mentor and certify programs. But lastly, one of the critical pieces that we've launched in this last year and why this is so exciting for the propane industry is we've launched something called Simply Report, which is a first of its kind AI-powered platform that allows anybody to report their suspicions of trafficking and kind of test their theories, even if they're unsure. They don't have to be, certain. They just have to be concerned. But as they're doing that, it analyzes it against an AI behavioral matrix, ranks the likelihood of it being a trafficking situation, and within seconds routes it to dashboards accessible by law enforcement. So that's a really critical tool for us to put into the hands of the propane industry.
That is just
incredible.
bone chilling. Yeah, that's spectacular. And like you said, the propane industry, even if those service techs are in the house for just a few minutes, training them to kind of be aware of their surroundings and maybe catch some of those things that they normally wouldn't have without that training.
Absolutely.
Kristi, we always start the podcast here with a question on what does leadership mean to you and how has it changed over the years?
So I came from an interesting background when it comes to leadership. My father ran a $1 billion company. He was the CEO, and he was the chairman of the International Franchise Association and the president of the World Presidents Organization. So I grew up around some of the best leaders in the world, leading major corporations. From childhood, that's where I spent my spring breaks, was on leadership retreats with CEOs. So I've gotten to see firsthand what good and bad leadership looks like. And leadership at its core, in my mind, begins with service. When somebody comes in with a service mindset, that they are really there to listen and learn and lead their team from a place of deep understanding and listening, then I think that that's incredible. I think leadership is influence at its core, and influence is getting people to do something that they maybe otherwise wouldn't do. But you can't get them to do that unless you understand what motivates them, what's important to them. And so those are some of the things I've seen from great leaders. But actually, I'm in the process of writing a leadership book with my dad and some of the other executives that I've had the opportunity to grow up around. So it's a ever learning process.
I love that. That you started off with your dad, and then you're talking about service as a leader and listening as a leader, and then one of the things we talk about is mentorship in this industry as well. Plug for the Women Propane Knowledge Exchange membership program, mentorship program. Check it out. But I was going to ask you a question, but I'm going to kind of just segue for just a second. Let's talk about that mentor you have, your dad, I'm assuming. I mean, I'm going to ask you the question, who has been a mentor in your life that kind of defined who you were, or who you are, I should say. And, going down that path of this mentor who helped shape you, who you are today. And then, what really truly defined that moment in your life to take that leadership skill and start the SafeHouse Project. And I know your quick bio, you talked about the SafeHouse Project and some of the things that you realize what was going on in these different countries. But can you talk a little bit about that? So kind of a two-part question. Who is that mentor? And I'm guessing I know who that might be. And then what that kind of led you to the SafeHouse Project.
Yeah, I would easily say my parents, because they are truly some of the best leaders I have ever seen, not just as parents, but truly as business professionals. And my mom had a significant background in the intelligence community. And so saw service and saw leadership from a variety of perspectives, but they planted this audacious belief in me that I had the ability to change the world. And when that's every little girl and little boy grows up with people going, that's great. What do you want to do when you grow up? And at some point in life, it transitions from that's great. And what do you want to be when you grow up to be realistic? And, let's talk about, how to actually do this differently. And that switch never came for me. It was always the continual belief that we have a responsibility to make an impact in this world and an opportunity, if we work our butts off, to make that happen. And so when we were looking at launching the SafeHouse Project, they were the first ones that I went to and said, one, can we use the family foundation to file for the 501c3 and start this organization? But two, I need help. I need, any good leader knows that they don't know it all. And so it was, where are my gaps and who do I need to surround myself with to make this happen? And they did just that, and really helped mentor and advise. They actually, against common practice, are still on the board of directors for SafeHouse Project. They're just getting ready to roll. But they have helped guide and shape this organization into what it is today. But I think it all stems from that never shutting things down. And this organization has pushed against significant barriers, significant obstacles in this field. And we have continued to innovate and blaze trails and have a board that supports us. And I would largely say it's because they operate from that belief that no is never an option. It's not, we can't, it's how can we? And that changes the game.
That's amazing. You've had your family there from the beginning. And that's so fun to hear that you're kind of going against the norm and it's working out tremendously for you guys. So congratulations.
Yes. If you want your butt kicked, put your parents on your board of directors.
100%.
I do not have a cheerleading board. I have a board who will tell me when I'm wrong. And I love that because it allows me to test and kind of wrestle through ideas. I come from a faith background and the Bible talks about iron sharpens iron, but that means sometimes you got to go sword to sword and you kind of have to be willing to great against each other. And I think that that's what makes us all better.
Yeah, even having that challenge, I feel like is kind of irons out your plans a little bit better to have somebody challenge it. So then it makes you want to do it even more sometimes. Kristi, we like to throw in some fun questions here and there just to kind of break things up a little bit. So I have a fun question for you.
Okay.
If you had to pick one food to eat for at least one meal for the rest of your life, what would that food item be?
Okay, so I'm going to pick two. I'm going to cheat. So my co-founder and I, when we go into really big stretches of work and travel and all of that, there are two things that you can always find in our purses, and we stash them before we go on trips. One is pistachios, and the other one is gummy bears.
Protein and sugar. I
Yeah.
love
Good
it.
balance. I surprisingly live for days on pistachios and gummy bears. One gets the protein fix and the other one gets the
Yep.
sugar fix.
Yep.
Oh, that's amazing. So are you the pistachios with the shells, or do you have to get them
No, they
de-shelled
have to be
already?
unshelled because
Yep.
we need like quick handfuls. And the other thing is that there is only one kind of gummy bear on our team. Anybody who has a different opinion, I'm sorry, there's the door. You cannot. And Albanese are the only gummy bears acceptable.
Albanese. That's fun.
Oh, that's amazing. Kristi, how do you lead and inspire a team around you when the mission is so emotionally heavy to get people?
So I think the one thing is that we lead a team of leaders. I don't have people that I have to poke and prod and get them to get up and do their job. We have a team that runs with fierce perspective and dedication. We do Clifton Strengths Finders for everybody on our team. And something that we've found extremely unique is that every single person on our team has belief in their top five. And most of them in their top three. And there's actually a couple of different trends. One is everybody has belief. And so again, it's the thing that allows us to have a no drama team. Everybody is operating with, I mean, I lead a team of almost 20 women, and I have a lot of other contractors that are peripheral that are all of our men. But most of our team is women. And it is truly a no drama team. And I think belief is really critical to that. The other one is that they're an extremely agile team. And I think that agility and that desire to change the course of history and the knowledge that we're going to have to continue to learn and grow and evolve and adapt is really critical. And so I think they have extreme ownership over everything that they do. You know, we as the leaders set the tone and the direction. But when we give them control, then that makes all the difference in the world. And we do leadership books in our team. Leadership is a really key factor in this. And one of them that truly changed the course of this organization was the book called 4 Disciplines of Execution. And if you have not done that with your team, I highly recommend it. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. But it really talks about looking at your lead measures, your lag measures, creating that cadence of accountability, creating a scoreboard. And so we went through that book with our team, and last year for 2024, said, okay, what is our wildly important goal? And our team decided that nothing else really mattered except the survivors that we serve. We could talk about the number of people that we train or the number of, safe homes that we launch. But at the end of the day, everything that we did at the core was how many survivors do we help exit? The previous year, 2023, we helped 524 survivors. So we all sat down that January and said, okay, what's the goal? And somebody said it. They said 1,500 survivors. And you could hear a pin drop in the room. And everybody went, oh, that's a lot, especially considering at that point we had only gone from one full-time person who served the 524 to 2. And they're going, this is crazy. And we said, we're going to bring the support around. There's a budget piece that's going to come with this, but what do you need? And when we hit December 31st, they had served 1,529 survivors. And so that gave them a bold confidence to then come in to January of this year and say the goal is 3,333 survivors. And this time they were operating from this confidence of, we've done this. We know how to do it. We know how to create our KPIs. We know how to create the WIG. Everybody knows what to do to make this happen. And those are those things as a leader that you just go, this isn't, yes, I can set the vision and I can set the direction, but when they have extreme ownership and they understand what has to happen in their respective departments to make that happen, I just get to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of the end game, isn't it? All the stuff that kind of led up to those incredible numbers, the agility, the let's turn the cans into can we's, the belief, the creating teams, the 20 plus women in your organization. That's all good inspirational items, but really it's all about those numbers of the kids you're saving at the end of it. And that's incredible.
It's really incredible. And it's an exciting thing to be a part of. And it's the thing that when they do stuff like that, and then you see people go, you're a 7-year-old organization. There's no way you guys can pull things off. And they go, you want to see all of our, markers of everything that we've done that people said weren't possible. And so it gives them the audacious belief, same thing that was given to me, that they can change the world. And when that's the undercurrent of an organization, you go far.
Mm-hmm. That's the fighting swords against swords right there. That's what your parents taught you.
Yep.
Someone saying you can't do it. I'm like, really?
They'll say often, underestimate us. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
And so it's we've applied to take over the National Human Trafficking Hotline, which is something that's been operational for since about, I think, 2008. And it's started to really atrophy and have challenges. And so we've applied to take it over. We should hopefully know here soon. But there was a lot of, how in the world could you guys have the audacity to believe that you as a tiny organization, as a young organization could do it? And just to see how much our team doubled down and said, no, we can do this. And not only we've been doing it and doing a lot of that operational functionality already. And so it's incredible to see.
Well, I have a follow-up question with that, but I forgot my fun question the first time I asked you, so I apologize. I saw Jess looking at me. So, Kristi, I have just a real simple question. You have a pencil and a pen in front of you. Which one do you use and why?
A pen, because pencils smudge.
And you're like, I don't make errors, and what I write down is what's going to happen.
I write down is what's going to happen, and I like to check things off, and I do it until my checklist become extremely messy, and then I will redo it. But the other thing is, my trick is sticky notes, because sometimes you just need a good sticky note to throw away.
Yes.
Yep. What note? I don't remember a note. It's in the garbage. So following up with that comment you made about being on the national level. So, this is a propane industry podcast, Women Propane, the council, they're the ones that kind of host this Through the Leadership Lens podcast. So let's kind of focus on the propane industry for just a second, cetane. So I want to hear the story, like what happened, who contacted who, how did you get this incredible organization into the propane industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So really, it kind of began in 2020. The world had shut down. Mandatory reporters weren't seeing kids in schools, and had this gentleman named Tom Forshaw approach me, and he is one of maybe 4 chemical distributors to the pest management industry. And he called and said, "Hey, listen, the world's shut down. Pest management groups are going into 20 to 30% of homes across America. Mandatory reporters aren't seeing kids. Can you train us?" And it was such an unusual question. And I'd been in the middle of some conversations with folks about, oh, I'm not going to step into this. This really isn't my fight. This isn't my industry. It was COVID. And everybody was just trying to figure out how to take care of themselves, and rightfully so. But it was such a cool time for somebody to come and say, hey, we actually have a really incredible opportunity. And so we developed a training with them and with teams of survivors to help equip the pest management industry to understand what trafficking looked like. And it rolled out through the National Pest Management Association. About 160,000 people had access to that training through the NPMA website. But then Barrett reached out to me from cetane and said, hey, listen, there's a way for us to do this and even expand it out. And started to understand his position within the marketplace and all of the different industries that he worked with. And he said, listen, I think that we can get this out to, over 1 million people between landscape, between propane, between HVAC, on all of these different service industries. And so we kind of wanted to revamp the training anyways. And so that allowed us to go more holistic on any in-home service provider, and then get to work with rolling it out across industries, starting with the propane industry. And so I think the main thing in this to know is that it equips everyday heroes to be able to identify and respond to trafficking, and people who oftentimes say, hey, I saw something, but I didn't know what to do. So between this training and now our tools, Simply Report, really equipping and empowering them to be able to report suspicions of trafficking, is a game changer.
I can I have one quick thing. You said 2020 the world did shut down, and what was the percent of service techs in homes that did not see kids? 20 to 30%.
This it was the propane industry, or the pest management industry was going into 20 to 30% of homes across America. And so and the thing to know about that is, about at that time prior to COVID, about 40% of child trafficking victims were first trafficked by a family member. But during COVID, we actually saw that increase to in some areas of the country, upwards to 85% of those that were trafficked by a family member. You saw moms selling, kind of being forced into positions by landlords to basically say, if you want to keep your rent or want to keep your apartment, your 14-year-old girl over there is, send her to me. And so we started to see instances like that happen. And we saw, a lot of people weren't going into homes, but somehow the bug guys were still active. And
Yeah.
so they just said, hey, how can we do this?
Yes.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That's
Wow.
not something you would think of, like COVID impacting things
No.
like that.
Right.
No. Yeah.
No,
Right.
it was
Gosh.
truly out of the blue. And I think that's what was so cool, was in the world where so many people just say, not my problem, not my thing, I don't know what I can do. The bug guys stepped up and said,
Yeah.
send us in.
Wow. And just the snowball effect it had after
Yep.
that, with all the other industries that go into people's homes to provide a service, that they could be trained and educated on something like that.
Absolutely.
Kristi, circling back to kind of your wins of having those different goals over the years, and they get bigger and bigger, how does your team celebrate those wins as they accomplish those milestones?
So, have you ever seen the movie Elf? So, the part where Santa gets back to the North Pole after the first round, and he's like, and we did it, and we celebrate Christmas, and they all go, yay! And they get right back to work building
Next year.
next year. That's a little bit of what my team reminds me of sometimes, where they celebrate the wins. Absolutely. We celebrate every survivor that is placed. That to us, there's the big wins. There's things like hopefully winning the National Human Trafficking Hotline contract. But I get a notification every single time a survivor is placed into a safe home. And those are the things that we celebrate. Because if we don't celebrate all of the ones that are the small moments that lead up, then the big moments fall flat. But we're a team of celebration on the things that are done. And every time a safe home is certified, every time we get to push money out for grants for safe homes, we celebrate those things. But then that team says, yay, and then gets right back to work on continuing on the next effort.
I love hearing that you celebrate each survivor, because each one of those survivors deserve the same level of celebration as the next one. So that's amazing. Kristi, how about, what are you most proud of in terms of the SafeHouse Project impact so far? Is there any one defining moment that you're like, I have done this and I made an impact?
I think, gosh, that's a big question. I think holistically is a mindset. It's that I lead a team that's not afraid to fail. We say oftentimes, fail fast, fail forward, because I don't want people to think that that messing up is a reason to not try. And so I lead a team that's not afraid to fail, and they're not afraid to innovate, and they're not afraid to push against boundaries. Um, and I think that's really incredible because I don't ever want to lead a team that settles into status quo, that settles with the idea that this is how it's always been done and therefore you can't change it. My favorite thing, so we keep grenades on our desk.
Oh my gosh, I did not expect you to pull that out.
Wow. I've seen a lot of things on these podcasts, but never a grenade.
I mean, it's largely cement. But I always tell our team sometimes our job is to pull the pin and throw the grenade. When
Yep.
there's a system that, you work with foster care systems, you work with systems that are so entrenched in bureaucracy and just that's how it's always been done mentality. And to see them go, that's stupid. How do we do this better? And know that they've got my backing to push against broken systems and to innovate is really exciting. And so because of that, they're not afraid to take on the hard. We've always said our team takes on the things that nobody else really wants. And sometimes that's survivor cases. Sometimes that's building a program that the field knows needs to be there, but nobody wants to do it. And so when you lead a team that's willing to innovate, that's willing to push against broken systems, and that's willing to do the things that need to be done, then again, you see incredible impact.
So you said your co-founder and your spouse were both in the military?
My co-founder's husband.
Co-founder's
So-
husband. Okay.
Mhm.
I'll say that's probably where the grenade idea came from, I'm guessing. But hey, that's fun. But thank them for their services, by the way. I'll ask a question, then I'm going to go back to that comment you made. So I always like to ask this question: if you can go back in time and talk to your 16-year-old self, what advice would you give 16-year-old Kristi Wells?
So it's funny that that's the age that you picked. So the first time I saw trafficking, I was 16 years old and I was in Costa Rica on a missions trip. And I saw kids as young as 6 that were being sold into the commercial sex trade, and went to go visit a place that stood on this mountain overlooking the valley that was full of tents that were full of kids that were being sold. And I came back with my heart on fire. I had seen something I couldn't unsee, and so worked to do some things to raise some money for that safe home, to send some stuff down there. But I had a burning in my heart that never went away. And I think, again, sometimes in life we see these things and then we kind of get the narrative of, yeah, but that was just, you were just really inspired and that wasn't really a calling. That wasn't really the thing that you were supposed to do with your life. To 16-year-old me, I'd say that's BS. And sometimes a vision and a dream can be put in you at a really young age, and it's your job to chase it down and to not stop. And so I think, again, the narrative that, sometimes you have to, settle into reality and go with the things that are realistic. To that, I say, no, you don't. Sometimes you have to chase after the dream that's been put inside of you.
That's crazy that you were 16 years old seeing that. Like, it's that in front of people, and there's a lot of people that just turn and walk away. So incredible. So going back to your team, you're talking about building these leaders, building these innovators. Hey, let's help me make decisions. Stand up and say what you have to say. Pull the pin, throw the grenade, see what happens. Not everyone can speak up. That's something that's hard to get out of certain people. There's a lot of brilliant people out there that are just afraid to stand and be the tallest one in the room. What advice would you give to someone like that? Like your viewer, listener right now that's sitting watching this going, I am an innovative thinker, but I just don't have the confidence to be the tallest one in the room. What advice would you give that person?
I would say, hopefully you've got leadership that can listen. And so I would say, set a one-on-one with leadership and say, hey, I have some ideas that I think could help solve X, Y, or Z. If you're the big idea fairy and it doesn't work to solve a problem for the organization, then maybe that's not the right thing. But if you identify maybe a problem or an opportunity, and go in smartly, kind of do a little bit of a SWOT analysis and say, hey, this is an opportunity that I believe could make a difference or an impact. And here's my plan on how I think it should be done. Then I think that can be an incredible way to show your value to the organization. What doesn't work, though, is, well, I have these great ideas and nobody will listen to me. When people get entitled in their innovation, that they don't realize that they might not have the full picture. And so one of the things that we emphasize in our team is be curious. Curiosity it kills complacency. Curiosity is the thing that keeps us humble. And so when leaders approach innovation with curiosity of, okay, you're looking to come in with this solution, I maybe don't see the need, but why do you see the need? And asking that why question 5 different levels deep to make sure that they're understanding why somebody is coming with a solution that maybe they don't think that they need. It's because maybe there's a different pain point that they're trying to solve for that leadership doesn't understand is there. But if the person with the idea approaches things with curiosity and brings a lot of those thoughts forward, then I think that can make a difference and can make a strong business case. Because at the end of the day, even with our team, something's got to have a strong business case. You can't just have a solution that is spend more money unless you have a darn good reason as to why. But we've had plenty of things where we've changed direction because of things that our team has brought forward. I'll tell you a quick story. I got in, made a decision as a leader, and had 2 of my staff members call me. And they said, we strongly disagree with this decision. And I said, nope, you're wrong. You don't have the full perspective. Here's my take on it. And they said, no, you're wrong. And here's our take on it. And somewhere in this, they weren't yelling, but it was a very heated discussion. And in the middle of it, I said, well, darn both of you, because you're probably right. And they both laughed. And one of them said, you raised us to be this way. And, and she was 100% right, because I always tell them, I, as a leader, don't have all the answers. My job is to lead and to make the best decisions possible. My co-founder and she and I do everything together. No decision is made just by me. It's she and I making every decision together. And that kind of check and balance makes a world of difference. But we don't have all the answers, and we're never above reproach. I'm not above somebody on my staff calling me and telling me they believe I'm wrong, because I have to be humble as a leader to be able to listen. And I think that makes a huge difference.
That is an amazing trait in a leader. I feel like having that humility to listen to people and admit that you're wrong and saying, gosh darn it, I know that I wanted this, but you are 100% correct. So,
well, and then it allows them to feel like in those times that they do have challenges and they do come to me and they're okay to wrestle that out with me. And then they might hear my perspective from 10 other things that they didn't know were factors in the equation that then allowed them to back my decision more, or they influence my decision and we go, okay, we were at 80%, let's get to 100% because your perspective changes it. And so it's the thing that refines this organization, because there's, especially having survivors on our team, there's a lot of the things that, I pull them into every decision that, especially that is externally facing.
Wow. Yeah, that's spectacular. I feel like even the fact of everybody's busy in their day, but just taking that time to listen to somebody and truly listen to them is really what defines leadership at many companies across the board. Kristi, time for a fun question. So besides your grenade that you gift people, what was the last gift that you personally received from somebody? Oh, who made you that?
This came from my co-founder's niece when she was here for the 4th of July.
Oh, adorable.
So we are very patriotic families, and very obnoxiously so, that this year we decided that the theme of 4th of July was not enough. And so we had to theme it as Aloha America. Um, which I have pictures of the insanity, but she was here for it. And all the kids were painting signs to go on a golf cart.
I love that you had it so readily available. It was
Mhm.
right there in front of you. That's amazing. So, Kristi, your work deals with very heavy, heartbreaking realities. And I'm sure that is something that could weigh on you and members of your team and everybody that you reach out to. How do you stay hopeful in the midst of all of that heartbreak that you deal with?
It's definitely I don't even want to say a balance, because that implies that there can be a balance. Hope is the thing that really keeps us all going. We always say that we have the opportunity to be on the hope side of a dark issue. And so when we see lives transformed, when we see survivors that we've helped escape, graduate college, get their first job, get married, uh, you know, find healing. I had one reach out to me one time, and she went to go get her nails done when she was at a safe home, and she got to pick out her own nail polish color. Now, it sounds like a small thing, but when her trafficker prescribed everything down to what color nails she would have, then just choice was so empowering to her. And so we celebrate every one of those things that is a win not to us. Like, it's not up to us to define their wins, but when we get to hear from them what's important to them and get to celebrate those things with them, that's a huge honor. And it's the thing that keeps us going. But we face horrific things. We had a 15-year-old that our team has worked with for 2 years to try to help escape. She was a mom. She was a daughter, she was a sister, and had never had a history of addiction prior to being trafficked. And the traffickers used drugs to help keep her in a place of coercion. And we lost her last week, and it ripped our team apart. We have had survivors that we fought like hell for, that the traffickers find them and we never hear from them again. And so we have those, but we have to keep believing that everyone that we serve is worth a hell of a fight. And so our team mourned the loss of the 15-year-old, and then immediately started and now we fight harder. And so when we see the hope that we get to be part of bringing into people's lives, it's the thing that keeps you going.
I can hear it in your stories, and I'm trying everything not to get emotional over this because I have kids. And I understand why now that you guys celebrate like Elf, because that is incredible, because every single kid matters. And this is a hard one to podcast over, because we touch leadership, but we're also touching the Safe House Project. And if it wasn't your fight and your leadership to get this thing going, the numbers, I was trying to write down all the numbers, and it was incredible that I couldn't keep up with them. Um, it's just an incredible story, Kristi. Like, for what you've done and the team that you built to protect these kids, because every life matters. It's awesome. I think what you're doing is great, and I was curious of how this podcast would go, and absolutely perfect. It's brilliant. It's better than what I thought it was going to do.
I think it's incredible when we can take an issue that it's so hard for people to understand, right? I mean, and it's, not only is it just dark and we don't want to press into it and we don't want to look deeper, and I get it. But then it's just hard to break it down and understand, well, how does this work and how does that happen and how do they end up there? And but when we can do that, and then we can equip people with action, that's the hope side of things. Because what we saw so many times before this was people were like, keep getting told that human trafficking exists, and I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what to do. I mean, at movies like Sound of Freedom, people were pounding down our door going, I don't know what to do. And while that represented about 3% of trafficking instances in the US, and so we had to do a lot of reframing for people to help them understand what the real fight looks like and then what the real solutions looked like. Once they understood and once they felt like they had a tool to do something, it's game changing.
And I just have one follow up, and that's enough for me for today. But what an emotional roller coaster, too, because Cetane approaches you or you approach them, and you're building this exciting new way to spread what you're trying to do, right, with the Safe House Project. And then you have survivors and you're getting these messages, and then you find out that a mother just recently passed. And then you have a podcast where it's like, now we want to talk exciting things again, what you're doing and how you got there. And I feel like we're just up and down. Like how do you prep for that every morning when you wake up, not knowing what call you're going to get? How do you mentally prep for that day?
So don't know how much I'm allowed to talk about it on here, but I will tell you, so I very much come at this from a faith perspective. And my co-founder and I are up at 5:30 every single morning praying. And that is the anchor to everything that we do. I would not be doing this without my faith, and without the hope that comes from God. And so that is my stabilizer and my anchor in some pretty hefty storms. And it's the thing that allows us to always come back to the joy.
That's spectacular. Oh, I got the goosebumps from everything. Kristi, you have such an amazing story, and thank you for even sharing it with us and our listeners as well. If people wanted to learn more about your company and what they do and how to be involved, how would they reach out?
Yeah, absolutely. SafeHouseProject.org is our website. And they can always reach out to me directly. And it's Kristi, Kristi, at safehouseproject.org.
Well,
and download Simply Report. That's my
yes.
biggest call to action. Simply
Yes.
Report is an app. It's on the Apple Store. It's on the Android, Google Play Store. But download Simply Report and take that one simple action. If you do nothing else, that is huge, because then it allows you that if you see something, to report your suspicions. You don't have to be qualified. You don't have to be anything other than concerned.
Awesome. Keep plugging away. I think it's a great thing. I love it. And that's a wrap on this episode of Through the Leadership Lens, a podcast proudly presented by the Women in Propane Council.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe, download, and share it with a friend or colleague.
And if you want to learn more about Women in Propane, connect with us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram,
or visit us online at www.womeninpropane.org.
I'm Freddie Ridler.
And I'm Jessica Balderston. Thanks for listening.
And keep leading with purpose and vision.